Alright, so the first thing that I do is I just line up my clips. I get them in order. Then I enable time remapping on my clips. Time remapping, what it basically does is it just makes it so that you can change how fast or slow the clip actually goes. I press F9 to easy ease, and then I just edit the graph for a little bit. Just make sure you get it to your liking. Then I add a null layer. What you have to do is you have to parent the null layer. For some reason it was hidden for me, so it took me like way too long to find out how to fix it. The recording was a little bit off center, so I'll show you like how to do it on the side. But you parent the layers together pretty much. So now I start to make the zooms. So what I do, I'm doing a zoom in first. So I zoom it out at the beginning, so that way I can zoom in as I go further into the clip. I add motion tile to my main clip. Turn on mirror edges and set output height and output width to 300. I add an adjustment layer. I add Luma key. You can't see the values, but it doesn't really matter because I remove it later anyways. I just try to get the settings right, but I removed it later anyways, so. Now I add my second keyframe for my zoom. I zoom it in. Pretty sure first value was at 70. The second value was at 115. I easy ease with F9 again. Just tamper with the graph for a little bit. Make sure it looks good. And then I start making the second zoom, or the zoom out. I ended up actually flipping these because the second clip was more zoomed in. So I made the intro a zoom out and then the outro zoom in into the close-up of laughing. Now I just play with the graphs for a little bit. Just get them to what looks good. Yeah, I just play with the graphs for a while. And now I start to make a slide in. So he starts on the left and then slides into the right. So you set the first value to a negative number, like maybe negative 100. And then second value to the original position. And also make sure to separate your X and Y dimensions when you're doing a slide on the null layer. I easy ease it with F9 and then I do a slight ease and graft. I just changed the graphs around a little bit to what looks the best in my opinion. I removed the Luma key from the adjustment layer. I added Minimax instead. Set the first point to a high threshold, second point to 0. Now I add Luma key at the end. I wanted his eyes to just be barely showing. Make sure the first point has low threshold and the last point has high threshold. I watched it over a few times. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the first clip. Alright, so starting off on the second clip, I added 2 null layers and I parented them to each other just like before. I added an adjustment layer and then I added Luma key. I set a keyframe at the start of the adjustment layer at a high threshold, and then I set a keyframe at the end with a low threshold. I changed the values just to what looks best to me for a little bit until I get like what I'm looking for. So yeah, now I start to make the zoom in on this clip. So I set the first keyframe with the scale at about around 70. Then I add motion tile to the main clip, turn on mirror edges, output height 300, output width 300. And then I set the keyframe for the end of the zoom in, which I set it at 100 for scale. I change the graph and make it an ease in, so it makes it more smooth. In these types of flow edits, you always want to have some type of motion. You never really want there to be a slow moment in the edit. You have to keep up the pace so that way you don't lose engagement. So yeah, I just watch it back a few times, make sure it flows well enough. And then I start to make the second zoom out for the clip. So I keyframe the scale at 100, and then I set the second keyframe as zooming out. Watch it back a few times. So yeah, now what I do, I add a high threshold ending for the Luma key, so that way it has a sort of fade out as well. Now I easy ease the last zoom out. I just adjust the graph to whatever looks best. I want the zoom to actually be visible, so I'm adjusting it a little bit. Watch it back a few times. Now I decide that I'm gonna make a slide at the end. So I'll make the first keyframe the same, the second keyframe to the right. Add an ease in graph. See, that's a little too short, so I increased the value a little bit so where you could actually see the slide at the end. Watch it back to see if it's good. Just decided to add one more thing. I put both adjustment layers above because I add a shake on that small adjustment layer on both clips. So I add the frequency at 13 and the amplitude at 0.5 in the middle, and on each side I set it to 0. And it looks clean. I just add my color correction, and then I'm done. Thank you all for watching. Hope this helped you out. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.